Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
The first order on the agenda, as always, is public comment. Is there anyone here, either in person or online, would like to share any thoughts? If you do, come to the podium, say your name and address, please.
I would like to make a comment.
Last two more times. Is there anyone either here or online who would like to share any thoughts?
I would like to make a comment.
I'll ask one more time. Is there anyone here who would like to share any thoughts during the public comment section?
Hello, can you hear me?
Next is to approve county board
Can you
minutes
hear
from
me?
February.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Hello?
Motion by Commissioner. seconded
Mr.
by
Chair,
Commissioner-
you have a comment?
Yes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is to acknowledge the receipt of three different committee minutes: Economic Development Authority, January 25th, Economic Development Authority, December 20th, and the Whitewater Joint Powers Board, December 21st.
Move to acknowledge receipt.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ward, seconded by Commissioner Elsing. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, consent comments.
Oh.
and
I'm sorry.
Give a public comment that was online.
Oh.
They're on the phone.
Okay,
Hear them on my headset,
okay. So we'll stop and back up.
Thank you.
Heidi, is it perhaps okay to,
No, not right now. Yeah,
thank you, Chelsea.
we gotta work through it internally.
Yes.
I'm gonna pull
You are. Okay, then I won't.
additional discussion.
Heidi, if you're there, could you perhaps remove the timer? Maybe it'll be easier for us to see. Or if the person can hear us, I apologize that I missed you the first time. Could you unmute yourself?
There was someone iPhone who you could see their mic flashing, but of course
Okay.
there was
Okay.
no sound.
Those are iPhone. Okay, Katie.
Were you trying to get out there?
With Katie. You can see that she must be
Mhm.
trying to talk, but the speakers in here are not working.
It wasn't Katie, there was an iPhone.
Chelsea,
Chelsea.
Chelsea, could you try speaking as a kind of a test run to see if that works?
Absolutely, I am speaking. You cannot hear me.
Chelsea either.
Okay, we can't hear Chelsea either. Does it make sense that we'll keep on working on the,
IT's on their way.
okay.
Okay.
Should we pause and wait, or should we continue and then stop and come back to it?
I think at this point, we're past
Yeah,
due, so.
I'd continue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially since you have a time limit.
Yep, so whoever is trying to share thoughts with us, please stick with us. We have people coming from the IT department. Hopefully we'll figure out the sound issue. I apologize for that problem. The next item on the agenda is to consent comments and approval of the agenda. Commissioner Elsing,
Nothing for me.
Commissioner Ward.
I would like to pull 6.2 just for a little discussion, added information, please. And then a committee report, a future board agenda, and an announcement. Thank you.
So 6.2, so we'll make,
6.12,
Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry,
that's okay.
6.12.
Yeah.
Okay, so that will become item 7.7.
That's fine, yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Commissioner Meyer,
Nothing, thank you.
Ms. Holte,
Nothing.
Ms. Sonneman.
Nothing from.
Okay. That will need motion to,
Motion to approve the consent business.
I'll second. No, the agenda.
Amended
Our agenda, excuse me.
Amended.
Pardon me,
agenda.
yeah. I'll second that motion.
motion by Commissioner Elsing, seconded by Commissioner Meyer to approve the agenda, the amended agenda, which just takes item 6.12 and makes it 7.7. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, motion carries. We then need a motion to approve the consent business.
So-
We need it read into the record.
Yeah,
first.
let's read it into the
First.
record.
My apology.
That's okay.
Ms. Holte, thought we discussed it.
6.1, approve renewal lease with Winona Health for public health space. 6.2, approve contract with GTRE commercial appraiser Tad Marinak. 6.3, approve temporary on sale liquor license Storm Sporting Events. 6.4, approve LG 220 gambling application for exempt permit Ridgeway Elementary School PTA. 6.5, approve amendment of purchase of service agreement with Hiawatha Valley Mental Health Center for mental health services. 6.6, approve agreement and resolution for state local bridge replacement program grant for CASA 15 bridge. 6.7, approve agreement and resolution for state local bridge replacement program grant for CASA 17 bridge. 6.8, approve agreement and resolution for state local bridge replacement program grant for CASA 31 bridge. 6.9, approve amendment number 1 with Minnesota Pollution Control Agency agreement at Stone Point Park. 6.10, approve amended professional service agreement with Zumbro Valley Forestry. 6.11, approve renewal of agreement with SAP Concur. 6.2 was pulled. 6.13, confirm payment of disbursements.
Thank you.
Oh, I was mistaken. So 6.2 was not pulled. 6.12 was what was
Yes.
pulled.
1, 2.
Thanks.
Yes.
I misspoke.
Actually, you said
Oh, okay. I meant, you know what I meant. Read my mind.
I didn't know.
I knew it.
We need a motion.
I
to-
will move to approve the consent agenda as written.
Motion by Commissioner Meyer, second by Commissioner Olson to approve the consent items. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Should we pause? And,
Did we
I
get,
think we can try it.
okay, let's try again the public comment section. Is it Katie?
Have Chelsea try once. more.
Yeah.
I'm
Chelsea, if you're still,
Test.
go ahead, Chelsea.
test. This is Chelsea.
Yep,
Test.
we can hear you, Chelsea. Is it Steed?
Miss Steve.
Cages.
I think it was whoever's logged in, it's iPhone is the one that was trying to speak before.
Yeah.
I could hear them, but you guys couldn't.
okay, are they still there?
There is an iPhone logged in, but I don't. But they're muted right now.
We'll wait a little bit longer. So if the person who wanted to share some thoughts earlier, if you can still hear us and you're there, let us know.
Oh, we got Dave, June, Joe.
Is it okay if we move on and then?
Yeah, just if they're there and they have an issue, just contact, a commissioner or administration.
Apologize for that. All right, the next item on the agenda that moves us to general business is item 7.1, receive jail construction update. Morning, Thriller.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I was here just to give you a little bit of an update on the jail. Aaron can probably give us a little bit of update on some of the construction part of it too. I was just going to touch base on the jail itself and kind of where we're at with the programming of it, the different functions of the jail, and then touching base just on where we're at with the construction and what's going on with that. So to date, we're up and fully functional with the jail. It's fully open. All of the prisoners, inmates have been brought back to our county, and there's no out of county housing of any inmates at all right now. Currently
Isn't there one in Olmsted?
no,
They're back here?
they've been back.
Oh, okay. I didn't think we could hold that high a crime. Okay, misinformation.
Yep, all inmates have been back and are back. To date, right now, there's, in the program section, we have 14 programs up and running in the jail. I can go through those programs if you wish, but we have 14 programs that are available to the population that's in the jail right now. There's 30 volunteers that have been implemented in the jail. We're currently going through GPS contracts with some of the monitoring companies to get Huber up and running. STS is an up and running functioning program right now for out of custody inmates as well as in custody inmates. We're fully staffed, which is a very positive thing in our jail right now. For full-time inmates, we're at 24 staff, which was what our allotted amount is. We're fully staffed. We have 2 females and 2 males that are currently in training, but we're up to full staff. That was a challenge, but we got there and we're functioning through that. We currently have 9 transport officers as we speak, with one of those in training. Our food services is with Consolidated. We're up and running with Consolidated. They have 1 full-time staff at the jail through Consolidated that is serving the meals to the inmates. And I think they have 1 part-time person there, I was also told. There has been some complaints with Consolidated from some of the inmates. Excuse me.
Bless you.
With some of the inmates about the portion sizes, things like that. We're working through some of those issues with Consolidated. One of the items that we had in the contract with Consolidated when we had them is that inmates can purchase additional food items as part of the contract with Consolidated to kind of help with that issue, at least anyway. Our Guardian RFID system, which is in essence the technology in the jail that does all of our cell checks, things like that, is all up and running, fully functional. Our body scanners up, fully functional, running. It's a very technological jail, very, very neat, I guess the way to put it. The communications with the inmates and the staff, it's all done via iPods. So inmates are issued iPods that they communicate with staff for complaints, requests. I mean, they obviously communicate in person with them also, but they can also communicate through the iPods through that. They make phone
iPods or iPads?
iPods or whatever those small ones are, those iPods.
iPads.
Yeah.
I think iPods are for music, I believe.
Yeah, no, it's iPods. It's the smaller ones, not iPads. It isn't the bigger ones. It's smaller iPods.
Are they
That the
Okay, all right, I'll have a list of questions. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
it's smaller ones. It's iPods. It's not iPads. I've seen them. They're smaller ones. They make their phone calls on those, text messages on those. What else? They can do a lot of different things on those iPods, at least anyway, the inmates can.
Can do a lot of
One of the other things that they can do on those is have visitation with their relatives via those. It all costs money for the inmate to do that. For those inmates that are indigent or do not have money to do that, relatives can still come to the facility to have video visitation visits with the inmates. So those that don't have money to be able to do the iPod scenario can still do that during the scheduled times. Our track a key system is all up and running. That was a big accomplishment to get that done. So all of our key systems are all monitored now through a tracking system where they're signed out, and it's a whole to do for that, but that's all up and running. All of our fingerprints, court ordered bookings, all of that can be done online for the booking, or the scheduling of that. So somebody who needs to get fingerprints done for jobs or anything like that can go online, schedule appointments to come in and get that done now via our websites to get that done. That was something that was new for us that we were able to get done to try to make it more convenient for people to get done. Maintenance is still a little bit of a work in progress. Aaron can maybe help me out with some of this stuff if he wants to add in anything. Probably one of the biggest challenges, I guess, disappointments that we're still working on is the generator for the jail. As of last check now, that's been pushed out, I'm told, till, as of speaking with Buzzwell this morning, was August or September that the generator is going to be out till. There's been contingency plans still made in the event that we have issues for that with Key Electric. Morgan & Johnson has been working with Key Electric on specific legal agreements in consultation with the county attorney's office to make sure that should issues arise, that each party will live up, in essence, to their part of the agreements to make sure that the plans that have been put in place are in fact executed should they need to be executed. So I'm confident in at least that is being taken care of anyway.
So they just have a portable one for now?
You could maybe explain it better than I can, Aaron, that part of it.
Or you're saying
For the
the backup?
generator, for a back, they're just using a portable, like a cat portable one, or what are they using?
Right now, we have the old generator hooked into the, that was currently
Oh,
there
so
for the
they're still
LED.
using the old one.
So they're
Okay.
still using the old one.
Gotcha.
If there's a failure on that, they have arrangements with Cat and another company
Yeah, to
to
bring
get a
in the big
portable one to
portable
bring
one.
one in.
Yep, okay.
Well, while you're there, what's the hangup? Haven't they built it yet or what? Is that a slow boat from China or what's the
The
hangup?
first hang up was they thought they had it on order, but that generator that was ordered for was for a different job. So when they kept on saying the generator's coming, the generator's coming, the Key Electric, they ordered it, but it was for a different job and they thought it was the one for the jail. So when they did order it, that's usually a year out. So I think they ordered it last September or so when they thought it, or August. I don't have the correct date, but so it's almost first it was April, and it just keeps getting pushed back and pushed back.
So do we, with that time delay, do we have a price locked in from when it should have been ordered?
Yes.
Okay, so we won't be paying any price increases because, everything goes up.
Yeah, that was
Every
part
year.
of the agreement that we're working on with Market and Johnson and Key Electric. Besides the failure and everything else, that there's no increases.
Okay,
And the county is holding money back from Key Electric and Market and Johnson. So, they're not paid up in full right now.
right. And the old generator, are we just going to keep that then as a backup? Or does it have trade-in value or?
We'll look for trade-in value. Well, we can't trade it in because they won't
Nope.
allow trade-ins, but we could sell it on the public surplus or something like that.
That's 3-phase?
Yes. But right now it will power the LEC and the jail. But let's just say in the summertime when AC is running, we have to work with Winona Heat and Vent to shut some AC units off because it'll be too big of a load for that generator.
How big is it? How big's the old one?
285 kW,
What's the new one? 400?
750.
Oh, wow.
Well, air conditioning, in my opinion, is a luxury. I don't have it in my house, so. No.
In a
I
jail,
don't.
we do have set temperatures we have to maintain it at.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there a mandate for that?
Yes, there's actually a statute.
There's a law,
For-
yeah.
for
Okay.
winter
Luckily, there's no law
temperature
about
and
your
summer.
house.
Yeah, my house doesn't fall under that law. Okay, that's okay.
Thank you.
Open the windows.
So they're
Oh,
still
you can't
working on
open
a
the
couple
windows.
different items. I mean, there's skylights that they're over there working on today that had some leaking issues. A lot of what I would call new building construction things that they're still working, issues that come up. So, they find different gaps, didn't seal something properly, things like that, that they're still working through issues on those type door adjustments that are still being done. Some minor camera adjustments still that are still being done. So some of those maintenance items that are still being done yet also. I think I touched on most of the major spot things that I wanted to for the jail. Any questions that anybody has about the jail? Go ahead.
Yes. Answered the generator. These iPods then, so does each prisoner have access
Yes.
to them and they're easily internet accessibility?
Everything's locked down on those things super tight. That was one of the questions I actually asked in preparation for coming over here. I said, so they can get on any website they want? No, not even close. They're super locked down. You can't access only websites that are specifically allowed for those and everything else. So they're super locked down, but they are accessible for visitation, like I said, for family members and things like that.
Okay, but they pay to
They pay to
have
use
that,
them.
have that. And if they're damaged or anything, they will pay.
Yeah, Reliance, I believe, don't quote me on that. I thought it was Reliance Company is that system, I think, that has that system that we're using.
Okay, well, I relate it to most of my grandkids have a school issued computer and if it gets damaged, lost, the parent has to pay. So,
Yeah, it's not the county that has to pay for those. The company has that all built into this. And when they are kind of like with your grandkids, probably when they get them, they're in a big thick case type of thing that they get where if you drop them and everything else, they're protected. The county, I don't want to speak too much to this because I don't know all the details on this, but for each portion that the inmate uses those services, there is a portion that the county gets back, a percentage of that usage that goes back into, I believe it's the general fund of our revenues for that, but I don't want to speak, like I said, too much. 'Cause I'm not sure the details on that anyway.
well, it's not millions of dollars, it's pennies. Okay, all right, that's good. Food portion. Now, we talk about mandates and regulations. Isn't there a mandate of food
Calorie
portions?
intakes. We've had a lot of discussion about that when it comes to complaints from that as to whether we're making sure, I should say, that we're in compliance with the caloric distribution that needs to be given at least anyway, and we
Mhm.
feel confident that we are.
Okay, all right, because it just came from public health and we talk about that. You say you're fully staffed, housing and everything, but with a fully staffed jail, how many prisoners can we hold?
How many prisoners can we hold?
If you're fully staffed?
Yeah,
how
we're
many-
fully staffed. We can hold up to, oh, it's a moving target with
Right.
that, meaning that we have 83 beds. Doesn't mean we can have 83 people in the
Right.
facility.
Right.
So I'm hesitant to say we can have 83 people in the jail.
We're fully staffed for that, but now we don't have 83 prisoners. Are we hovering
not.
around that 20? So do
Uh,
we maintain full staff with less than capacity prisoners?
We maintain full staff with less than capacity prisoners.
So if we're fully, what are they doing if we don't have, I mean, how is the job split up but we're paying full wages?
We do
Um,
pay full wages, yes.
So where's the, what are they doing if we aren't fully, if we don't have anywhere near 83 prisoners? We're hovering, I've been watching, it's around the low 20s.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, whether you have a full facility or whether you have 20 prisoners in there, it's the same job duties that you're doing. It's just to what level that you're doing them at, meaning that whether you have 80 people that you're watching or 22 people watching, it's the same duties. You're still serving food, you're still doing your cell checks, you're still doing all the different duties that come along with, people are still getting booked into jail, so people are getting released, so people are still going to court. It's all the same duties that you're still doing.
I understand duties, but I guess if I'm watching 5 people or if I'm watching 80 people, it's a different level in my opinion. You said you have 14 programs up and running with volunteers, but all these programs are voluntary, right? From the prisoner perspective, they don't have to go to anything of these
I
14
think I have that
programs?
right. Yeah, I'm pretty
or
sure that
some-
all of them, I don't think any of them are court ordered.
Okay, and we can't mandate that they do anything on a county level?
There's none that I'm aware of that are court ordered for the people to go to.
Okay, should there be? I mean, and should the county, can the county require they go to anything?
The county can't require that they go to any. The judge would have to order that they would go to any as part of their court proceedings that they go through.
Okay,
They, if I could just jump in, with the Teen Challenge program, from our office, we've recommended to the court that while they're in there, especially longer term custody, that they be ordered to participate in there, particularly if they have,
and
if one of their, yeah.
okay,
So we're recommending that for, in particular, one person that came up last week. So that would be court ordered in that sense, but most of it's voluntary.
okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner Olson.
Overall, things smooth?
I think it's
Better?
going, yeah, I mean, it's going well. The thing that I'm happy to see and the questions that I asked is that everything that the jail was built for, are we utilizing everything? Is it all up and running?
Yeah, it's kind
In
of-
essence,
yeah.
is what my question that I asked was to the staff and everything else. And everything that the jail was designed and built for is being utilized. All the kitchen facilities, all of the medical facility, all of the equipment, the intoxilate, all the different equipment and services that were put into the jail are up and running and being used. So yes, I feel good about it. I feel good as to the spot that we're at, the staff that we have. Everybody has really pulled together and done a good job of getting us to the spot that we're at right now. So yes.
What would be any place for, what do you think the weak spots are that still might need a little improvement or some hand holding to get through, or is everything kind of up to snuff? Or a weak spot in it yet or not? You know what I mean? Like, oh, this could use a little more work, or oh, this program we haven't figured out yet, or is everything? kind of-
I'd like to be able to tell you, I mean,
Yeah, that's a good problem. You gotta stumble. That's a good,
I
I
mean-
mean, we gotta think about it, yeah.
I guess really if I'm gonna, try to dig for something, our Huber program, I wish that we had up and running right now. And I foresee that up and running. I'll make the prediction within the next couple weeks that we'll have that up and running. I wish we would have had that up and running sooner than we had it now, but that'll be up and running. I'm
other than
confident in that.
generator situation, pretty well, everything's kind of at as par here.
Aaron, I got a couple questions for Aaron.
Can I just jump in
Yeah.
before, because we're talking about the jail functioning? One of the things I've noticed that's been really good for, because we do a lot of Zoom court hearings and first appearances in particular, uncontested things. And the jail's been able to bring people who are in our jail instead of in Houston County or wherever, into that, I'll call it the Zoom room. And it's been very, very functional. So that was one of the things that we, had talked about in terms of planning, that would be very efficient for everybody concerned, defense, judges, my office, and the jail, because they're right there. I just
guess-
wanted to note that.
To piggyback off that, you made me think of it for Commissioner Elsing, any weak spots or anything like that. One of the things that as you're in it now, that you've we've come to find is that some tweaks to make to it. Little things like we wish we would have put different card readers on different doors versus having to have dispatch or it be an actual man door where somebody has to push a button to open a door, different things like that I think that we can probably still address, little things like
Ease
that.
of use type stuff.
Yeah, ease of use type stuff that we probably still can tweak some of those type of things. Now that you're in it, you're moving around, you're getting the different movements and things like that. You're like, I wish you would have put a light switch here type of thing. So some of that stuff I think we're trying to work out yet.
Not in the middle of the room.
Commissioner Ward, you had some more?
Yeah,
questions?
Aaron.
Commissioner Elton, where you finished?
Yeah, for now. Yeah, thank you.
How's I'm disturbed when I hear brand new skylights are leaking. I mean, I would expect brand new skylights not to leak. So how is all this little stuff going as far as getting the repairs from, I'm assuming is Mark and Johnson are the key to fixing all these little issues?
Yes, everything goes through Market and Johnson. As temperature dropped, we found a few issues in the jail. We had some frozen pipes in the kitchen because certain things weren't insulated correctly. Market and Johnson addressed it, took care of it. Skylights, we noticed when we had a snowstorm, some snow came into the skylights. I think some caulking wasn't, done correctly, but they're addressing the issues on everything that we bring up.
Okay, and they are true, my concern is they are true fixes that will last long-term. They're not temporary patches.
Yes, no, I don't like Band-Aids, so we're making sure it's done the right way. It's a brand new facility. We paid for it to be done the right way, so.
Good. Hold them accountable.
Everything that's done, I personally go and look at everything else or talk before they even do make the repair, how it's going to be done.
Okay, all right, well, I'm glad you're taking it to that level.
We
because-
bought the 10-year, $100,000 warranty.
Yeah, we want the full warranty.
Yeah, we don't want the tail.
We'll take advantage of it if we need to. Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other
I appreciate that.
Commissioner Meyer?
Chief Deputy Mueller, going back to Commissioner Ward's question, so at any point in time, what is the count of FDEs for staff at the jail at any point in time?
Say that one more time for me.
How many people is fully staffed at the jail?
How many full-time employees do we have?
If I were to go to the jail now, it's fully staffed. How many people are there right now?
On an
That-
average shift.
That are on an average shift. If we had full-time staff, there would be 5 on a shift.
And how does that compare to what full-time on a shift would be at the old jail?
At the old jail would be also 5
There's also
on a
5.
shift,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, it's the exact same FTEs. So the old jail, I mean, this is kind of rehashing different stuff, but the reason we can run the new jail with the same amount of FTEs that we ran the old jail is strictly and solely because of design of the new jail. The new jail is a modular indirect supervision jail. The old jail was a linear style jail that was labor intensive, had to walk down hallways, look into rooms. The new jail, you sit in an area and you observe all of the different cells. It's less labor intensive. You can observe more people with less people.
Thank you.
But we're at this, I'm sorry, I see that almost as a conflict because you said we're more efficient, but we've got the same number of staff,
Right, but we
That in
can
the
we can
old-
house more people.
but we're not at this point in time.
You
You have the capability.
the problem is tomorrow we may be.
Yeah, you have
you
the
know what I mean?
capability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never know, I don't know if there's going to be any crime tonight.
Commissioner
We may not have any police officers needed tonight.
Commissioner Myron.
So what I'm understanding is in the old facility, if crime were to pick up and we would see our inmate average go up, we could potentially need more staff. Versus this facility, we can pretty well manage it up to close to that maximum capacity with the same 5. Is that what I hear?
That's accurate.
But now that is, has the mandate from the DOC changed? Up to this point, no, right?
What mandate are you speaking of?
Staffing, they control they determine how many staff we need, correct?
They
Department of
do.
Corrections?
The only mandate that would be in addition to what we are having right now is if we averaged over 40 inmates, we would be required to have an assistant jail administrator position, which we don't have right now.
Is that based on a year average or is that how do they? Is it-
I'd not I'd have to check
it'd have to be some
exactly.
Sort of time.
Yeah, it'd be, it's whatever the time frame is, I'd have to look exactly, but it's on an average.
Okay,
So the likelihood of that for, excuse me,
no, go ahead.
Well,
the likelihood of that would be pretty small.
Well,
that we'd have to.
I mean, just to refresh everybody's memory without getting too deep into the weeds on everything here, this jail was built. The reason this jail was built, for the numbers that it was built, was on a 20 to 30 year average from history. We averaged between 50 and 60 inmates. Okay. This jail was all designed pre-COVID happening. So it was built for 50 or 60 inmates also.
And it reduces the need to transport prisoners as well.
Yes.
Other questions?
Thank you very much.
I just
Yeah.
want to finish off by thanking you, Jeff, thanking Sheriff Ganrud, thanking all the staff, all the other administrative staff that made the fully staffing possible. I know that is not easy to do. My sister worked for the Department of Corrections in Wisconsin, and it's just crazy over there between city police, county sheriff, state troopers, Department of Corrections, prisons. There's a whole lot of poaching going on. And she shared stories about administrators who leave their positions and take two demotions to work a job to pay $24,000 because they have underfunded their program for so long. They now have shortages all across. So thank you for what you did to get it fully staffed, because that is not easy to do. So thank you for everything that you guys did to make that happen. That is no small thing. Thank you, John. The next item on the agenda is 7.2, receive presentation regarding the regionalization of 911 dispatch. We have Ms. Lavala here from the Dispatch Center. Good morning, Jennifer.
Good morning.
Hi.
My name is, I'm not that tall. Hi, guys. My name is Jennifer Lavala. I'm the dispatch PSAP supervisor for the Winona County Sheriff's Office. I was asked to provide some information to the county board regarding how emergency communications work for Winona County, as well as touch on some items pertaining to consolidation or regionalization of 911. So again, I'm Jennifer Lavala, PSAP supervisor. PSAP stands for Public Safety Answering Point. You'll see that acronym further in this presentation. So just wanted you to understand what that means. If you have any questions along the way, please don't hesitate to ask. I'm happy to answer those. I have a lot of information in what is designated a pretty short amount of time. So any information that you would like me to further expand on at a later time, I'm more than happy to gather more information and do that for you at a later date. Slide, please. So some of the topics we're going to discuss are the job duties and statistics that take place in Winona County for our emergency call handling and routing, next generation 911 and what's coming down the road for 911 in the state of Minnesota and across the country, 911 versus 988, consolidation, pros and cons, and then questions if you have any. Next slide, please. So currently Winona County Emergency Communications Center, we dispatch for all fire, EMS, and law enforcement entities within the Winona County area, as well as utilizing resources for mutual aid in those areas that are serviced by agencies outside of our boundaries, but come into Winona County. So that's 5 law enforcement agencies, that's 14 fire first responder entities, 3 ambulance services. However, we just signed that contract with Winona Area Ambulance, so that'll soon be 4. And then we also dispatch for any volunteer or other ancillary agencies that assist, such as the SOAR team, dive rescue, mounted posse, ERT. Did you have a question?
So
Who's the fifth law enforcement agency? Winona, Goodview, St. Charles, Lewiston,
Winona County Sheriff's Office,
Winona County Sheriff. Yeah, there we go.
who I work
The
for.
most important one, right? Right.
Yes, that one. Next slide, please, Heidi. Thank you. So staffing, when we are fully staffed, we have 12 full-time public safety telecommunicators. We are currently fully staffed. However, 3 of those individuals are in the training process. That's fantastic for us. We operate with a minimum of 2 telecommunicators at one time. And that's kind of dictated by call volume, population, things like that.
Jennifer,
Yes.
training, that's a hot topic in the big picture.
Mhm.
So are we just training internally, or is there any external training, association training or?
Currently with Winona County, we do a couple of different ways. The training takes place within our communication center, but we touch on a lot of different topics and we do utilize third-party vendors for some of our training. An example of that would be the American Heart Association has pushed through legislation that all public safety dispatchers be trained in telephone CPR processes. And so we utilize a third-party vendor that provides us that training. Then we're required to complete that training every year thereafter so that we stay up to date with telephone CPR instructions for callers. Another item we utilize would be APCO. They're up there with NINA. They're designated for providing training and standards and guidelines for public safety telecommunications and 911. We utilize a 4-week online course that dispatchers use along with training alongside a trained communications training officer, completing training through the BCA that's required before we can have access to certain systems that have very sensitive data in them, as well as a lot of ride-alongs with other law enforcement, fire, EMS, geography, all those kinds of things to make sure that they're able to perform the job functions for Winona County specifically.
And because I sit on the regional board, the training, is it uniform across like Southeast Minnesota or all of Minnesota? Is it very similar? So the issue is, can one dispatcher cover another area and speak the same language and have the same procedures and processes in place?
I would say yes and no to that. Each department has different policies and procedures that are specific to the needs and requirements of the community that they dispatch for. So to that end, there would be a learning curve to being able to do that. However, what Next Generation 911 is hoping for and what the push is to make public safety telecommunicators a professionalized position similar to law enforcement, fire, EMS, where you have to earn a certificate and complete certain required training as well as ongoing training in order to perform that job function. If the people we're sending out require high levels of training and ability, I think it's incumbent upon us as the people taking those phone calls to be as trained as possible when working with the public to initiate that emergency response.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next slide, please. This is a brief list of the job duties that our current dispatch center currently handles. I'm not going to touch on each item. However, I just wanted you to understand some of the things that we do. It's not just answering the phone and sending out somebody to respond. We answer all 911 phone calls and text messages, as well as administrative line phone calls. And I distinguish the two because they ring differently in our dispatch center. However, I've received personally just as many emergencies via the administrative line as I have 911. Different people have different capacities for handling emergency situations than others. Again, we've dispatched all fire, law, EMS, and volunteer services. We monitor multiple radio talk groups continuously throughout the day, whether the call's initiated by us or initiated by a responder in the field. We need to be ready to field anything that comes at us. We import all information from the caller, from law enforcement, into our CAD system. That stands for Computer Aided Dispatch. It's the software in which we enter names, addresses, vehicle information, things like that into a call for service. And then we can have that information logged and saved within our records management system for future needs. We review and respond to all portals NCIC inbound messages. And this is specifically a system that is utilized by law enforcement, court systems, all approved law enforcement entities that are eligible to receive sensitive data through this connection. So if someone called me on the phone and said, hey, I need to know the social security or address for so-and-so, I don't know who you are on the phone, send me a teletype. I'll be happy to send you that message through this system. So we field all inbound messages. That includes other agencies who might be out with an individual who has warrants within our county, who is listed as a missing person. It includes keeping our police safe, which stands for COPS alerts, keeping our police safe. So any Say there's a armed robbery in Olmsted County, they would want to let the rest of us know in case that individual flees into our area, we can make contact, things like that. We also perform master control functions for our jail. I know we just discussed that with Jeff. With the new facility, this has become a larger task for our telecommunicators to perform on top of their already pretty full plate. We also enter warrants. We have to meet Minnesota BCA standards, so they have to be entered within 72 hours of us receiving them. They have to be entered fully and accurately, including all data. And then our dispatchers have to second party check that information to ensure the accuracy of it and that it's fully entered. We also have to stay up to date to city, county ordinances, statutes, Winona County geography, department protocols that vary from department to department, as well as the procedures for handling certain types of calls for service. Next slide, please, Heidi. Just a brief glimpse at what 2023 looked like for us in Winona County for our dispatch center. We received in total 56,250 inbound and outbound phone calls. So 11,356 911 calls, 30-some thousand admin line calls, and then outbound calls that we placed, as well as 28 incoming text messages. Texting 911 is a fantastic feature that we've had for a while, and it's still new. We don't get a lot of them yet, but I foresee that changing in the future.
Yeah, that number is low, knowing, of course, maybe our younger generation isn't calling 911.
It's been ingrained in everybody's mind that you call 911. And so I think that's just everybody's first initial thought. And not every agency across the state of Minnesota or the country is able to receive text messages. So then it gets muddy. Like, I know I'm going to get somebody if I call. I don't know if I will if I text. But the people in Winona County we can receive text to 911.
So are we, as far as education, because that's one thing that's new, and with our younger generation all carrying the cell phone, we still call them cell phones, but they don't use them as phones. They do all the other things on them.
Yes.
What kind of education, like, are we going into like the schools or anything and doing anything as far as?
I have
public
done
safety?
some of that. Yes, we try to put information out on social media. I've spoken with newspapers regarding text to 911 in Winona County's dispatch center. It's just getting that information out to the public and informing not just children and students. I mean, when I had to call 911, my phone was attached to a wall. I didn't have to search for it in my house. I knew exactly where it was every time. I didn't need a password to access it. So it's important to train not just students in schools, but also adults who have little ones in their house so that they know how to use their phones to call 911 as well. Yes, I agree. I have hopes to do more of this when I have all the time in the world and can do all of the things I would love to do for 911. That's on my list.
30 calls a day. Is that what that is?
I'm sorry?
The phone calls to 911, so 30 calls a day? Is that
30,
correct?
yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay.
On average, we're receiving we handle about 154 phone calls a day total. And of that, about 97 of those are actual calls for service that require a response by law enforcement, fire, or EMS.
So are we seeing the fire number go up because they're dispatching fire more frequently when EMS gets called?
That number is very large because Winona Rescue is part of the fire department.
And even St. Charles, I think sometimes will do that too, won't they?
Depending on the staffing of their ambulance service, yes, they'll respond
Yeah.
as first
So we're
responders as
going to
well.
see the fire number go up, and it may not be directly related to a fire.
Yeah, we didn't have 584 fires.
Yeah, that's what I
in
mean.
Winona
Yeah, we're
County in
seeing that, but to the
2023.
person that would not know that, they would say, wow, we have 584 fires,
Yes.
you know,
But that's how many times they were responding to a call.
correct.
Yes,
It'd be interesting to see what the true fire number would be.
I could pull that if you're interested.
I would be.
Yes, I can get that to you, sir. Next slide, please, Heidi.
That may be going up if it stays dry.
So this is just a quick, I'm not going to touch on each one of these. This is just a quick overview of those job duties that we performed that I had mentioned in our previous slide. And taking those numbers into consideration, the phone and radio numbers for minutes are an exact number. Everything else is an estimation based on the time it takes to perform that task and how frequent multiplied by how often we perform that task in that time frame. And these numbers do not include any of our functions as master control for the jail. So the number is skewed slightly. We didn't have a way to really quantify that data with 2023 numbers. We now have the ability with the new jail door system to be able to look at reports for how often we're opening doors. So without the jail operations in consideration, dispatch was presented with a task to perform about every 40 seconds. So that means when you walk into dispatch and there's not really anything going on, you don't hear a lot happening, that means those 40 seconds just compound on top of each other. We're not paid to be busy, we're paid to be excellent when we are. And so we work very hard to make sure that we're able to multitask. And when all of those tasks are hit on us at once, we can handle them efficiently and correctly each time. I would say that on average during the business day, we're operating approximately 22 doors per hour for the jail. I can't quantify that fully. Some people don't really need to be identified because you know who they are when you look at them. Other people you need to identify. It takes more time to look on the camera, verify whether they should be in the jail or not, contact a jail sergeant before allowing them entry to ensure the security of that facility. So I can't really quantify that number. What I can tell you now is 22 doors an hour is what we're seeing for the dispatch center for the jail. So every 40 seconds, that can be overwhelming at times, but we have excellent dispatchers in our call center. So that's just an overview for Winona County Dispatch. We're going to move into understanding how 911 calls are routed and the 911 calls that we receive in our dispatch center. Thank you, Heidi. Only 8% of 911 calls on average are from a wireline phone. It's a very small number, and the 911 phone system was built for wireline phones. 8% calls, they get routed to the PSAP responsible for the address associated with that phone number. That's how we receive that phone call. 85% of 911 calls are coming from a wireless cell phone that could be anywhere at any given time. When we receive those calls, it's from a cell tower that cell phone connects to, and the calls are then connected to the PSAP based on the location of the cell phone tower itself, not the location of the caller. Depends on how good and true the information is that we get for their location.
They triangular.
Triangular?
Yeah.
Yes, but the address based on the strongest signal in the tower.
Yeah, we're not
Um,
CSI or FBI.
The TV, if I had the technology that they do on TV shows, I'd be thrilled. We certainly do not.
Time in an hour.
Yes. Yep.
They're amazing.
Yeah. And then the other one, which is a newer technology, but we've seen the impact of it here in Winona, especially more recently following COVID and remote working, is voice over internet protocol. And that's just like all of the Ring Central phones we have for the Winona County staff. If I take that phone and I go to Texas and plug it in Texas, but I don't change any of the information on the back end, if I call 911 from that phone, I'm getting Winona, Minnesota. So that information is based on where the phone is most recently updated for their address information versus their physical location and where they're plugged in.
Okay, so you raise an interesting question. I'm getting more and more calls from not a 507 area code, but they are people that are, so they had a cell phone in Colorado or Texas or something, and they kept the number.
Mhm.
So what's the advice we should give them? Because what you're telling me then, that phone would be,
That's why.
That's a
we're
cellular
talking
phone.
Voice over internet.
Voice over internet protocol. A good
Oh,
example
different.
would be the employees in the courthouse that work for the DOC and not specifically Winona County. They utilize voice over internet protocol phones there. If they call 911 from the courthouse right next door to our dispatch center, they get the cities.
oh, so it's not just a conventional cell phone.
Yes.
It's got to be this.
So our
voice.
office
Yep.
location has 6 voice over internet plans, all different numbers. So it'd be VoIP. If I took that phone system
Your
from
your
HBC,
company?
my company,
Uh-huh.
but that phone system was 6 phone numbers associated to it, moved it to Texas, it would still say I'm operating here.
Ah.
Unless you update that information, unless the individual takes the initiative to update that location information.
Okay, but if
once
it's just
they've
a
moved it.
conventional cell phone,
Yes.
it'll tell you,
Mhm.
even though it's.
So
area
we've
code
so
is
we've
different.
seen an influx of these misrouted phone calls based on remote working. I think a lot of people took their Ring Centrals home with them, phones with them, and if they lived in Wisconsin, they were getting us in Winona versus getting Wisconsin who they need help. So this is a new change in technology, but again, especially with the change with work from home and things like that, we're noticing a larger increase of misrouted 911 calls based on these phones.
So we
um,
need to do some communication to these. It's primarily business.
No, I have.
It's a lot of
I have
businesses.
a magic jack, right?
A what?
A magic jack. It's a thing you plug in.
A
and it
magic
uses-
deck.
Uses the
Could fly
internet,
around
uses my wireless, and so I don't have a landline anymore.
No, I don't either, but I don't have.
So it's a voice over internet.
Okay.
And so
I don't have a landline.
If so,
anymore,
when
but
she
it's-
purchased that and made the address her address and she plugged into the wall and she makes phone calls from her home it works, but it's going to show her address. If she takes that magic jack and plugs it in at my house, it's going to show my address.
So I think we need to do.
It's going to show her address, but she's going to be calling that. You know what I mean?
Do we need to do some education?
That's on my list of things. Yes. And again, we see this very, very often with businesses because it's much cheaper to go with voice over internet versus other options for phone lines. So you'll see Fastenal utilizes this. A lot of schools utilize this. And so it's important that we do get that message out that they have accurate location information.
My magic jack cost me $5 a year.
Okay, but I guess I don't understand the
It uses my wireless internet.
versus a phone
That's
plan.
exactly right.
Okay, all right. See, learned something today.
Yeah.
Don't know if I need it.
Okay.
Learned.
Well, if you ever change phone systems and you've decided that you like a cheaper option, it's a good thing for you to know.
Echo deal through the counter.
Next slide, please, Heidi. So this is a map, and I guess I can't tell you with 100% certainty that this is all of the cell phones in and around the cell phone towers in and around the Winona County area, but I'm just showing you an example of where some cell phone towers are located. You'll see the Mississippi River there, as well as some of the cell phone towers that are on the Wisconsin side of the river. Why does this matter? Well, this matters if you live in Nodine and you call 911 and you get Wisconsin instead of Minnesota. So the way it works cellularly, 85% again of our 911 calls are coming in through a cellular network. They're connecting to a tower. How do they connect to a tower? Based on distance, any obstacles, landscape features, buildings, trees, the power of the tower's transmitter, the size of the cell phone network you're utilizing impacts which tower your phone call is going to route off of. The typical cell tower can reach about 45 miles away, again, depending on the obstacles that are in your way. It's not a fixed figure. That number can change based on the height of the antenna, frequency, rated power, directional characteristics, things like that. And so if you don't have signal on a cell phone, it's trying to draw from the best signal. It could be a lot of people using the tower at once. You see a lot of towers along the I-90 corridor. A lot of those calls route directly to State Patrol because likely if you're calling about something on I-90, it's going to go to State Patrol. So it'll ring to their 911 dispatch center instead of ours. They're very good at transferring those to us if it requires our response. And so with that, that's why sometimes if you call 911 in Wisconsin or in Minnesota, you get Wisconsin. So along Highway 61, you'll see a lot of the cell phone towers there are closer to Wisconsin than they are to you on Highway 61, plus that added barrier of the bluffs next to you to prevent you from getting that cell signal. So I mention this because this is part of the problems with how 911 operates now, because we had no idea of what cell phones. We had no concept in 1968 when the first 911 call was made that cell phones were going to be a thing. All of our 911 dispatchers in Winona County, and I can't guarantee it for every other agency, but the first rule, similar to real estate, is location, location, location. If I don't know where you're calling from, I can't possibly send you help. We're all trained to verify a caller's location every time they call, regardless of what information pops up on my screen when they call. I might get a landline address, I might get a VoIP address, and if I don't confirm that address, I'm of no use to that individual. So we always confirm a person's location prior to sending a response.
What do the twos mean on the map?
There's multiple ones in that location. If I zoomed in further, they would have been separate X's.
Okay.
Yep. And so additionally, to talk about this, 911 in Wisconsin does not talk to 911 in Minnesota. If I call 911 on Highway 61 and get Wisconsin, when they transfer that, it's going to connect to our administrative lines. So when I mentioned admin lines previously, I get plenty of emergency calls on our administrative lines, not just because of the person's wherewithal, but just how the call was routed.
How about Iowa? Is that the same?
Iowa?
Because we're pretty close to Iowa too. I mean,
I would imagine any border county is going to encounter this based on cell phone strength and where a person's located. Yeah, it's not just a Winona problem, it's nationally and just the infrastructure of how 911 was built.
Sure.
Next slide, please, Heidi. You can click for the next two drop lines and save yourself the clicking. One more. Thank you. Okay, so next we're going to touch on Next Gen 911. I started discussing this a little bit earlier. Again, the first 911 call placed in America was in 1968 when cell phones weren't even a concept. Phones weighed probably 40 pounds and they were attached to a wall. I knew that when someone called me from a phone in 1968, they were standing next to that phone in that location that they gave me. So the 911 system was not built for the way things have changed with technology, like most industries. So what Next Generation 911 was, and I've pulled a portion of this, there's a lot of different elements to it. I'm not going to take this presentation to give you all those details. So what it is it's digital internet protocol based system that'll provide more effective and efficient means for delivering, processing, and managing requests for emergency services. Again, getting better location information, ensuring that calls are routed to the appropriate 911 dispatch center the first time instead of having to be transferred, things of that nature. The reason why is it was never intended to be built for cellular moving phones. So when people are calling and requesting emergency services, we're not necessarily, it delays the response. And we know well in dispatch that seconds save lives and those seconds can be critical. And then the benefits of that, again, is improved caller location, improved community access to emergency services, and things like that. Next Generation 911 has been talked about for a long time. We're now finally in the stage where the wheels are hitting the ground and we're trying to work towards implementing Next Generation 911 in the state of Minnesota. That involves our GIS department and getting very good information submitted to the state as far as GIS data, so that, again, we're getting good location and it's routed to the correct dispatch center the first time. This involves training of public safety telecommunicators, things like that. But just touching on that, because you're going to get to see me probably a bit more often now if we're moving into this new transition to Next Generation 911. It'll change how they're transported and routed, greater resiliency and interoperability. Next slide, please, Heidi. I was told that mental health calls were a topic that the county board was particularly interested in. And I'm going to touch on 988 versus 911. 988 is the suicide and crisis lifeline. It's fairly new. And because of that, there's been some bumps in the road. I wanted to explain to you what it is, what it does, how it works, and a little information as to how it's funded, because it's not funded through Winona County, I can tell you that much. So what it does is it connects suicidal callers or callers in a mental health crisis to a trained professional who can help individuals experiencing mental health related crises, suicidal, mental health, substance use, any other emotional distress, things like that. It's confidential support. Listening and supporting is 42% of the calls and they're done with them. 11% of them, they share information and a referral to a health professional, mental health care professional, and then they're done with the call. 23% of those require crisis intervention. That's where they're trying to involve law enforcement, EMS into further providing help to this individual who has probably now been deemed a risk to themselves or others. Every caller is screened for suicidal risk. They have a set line of questioning that they ask each caller to ensure that if the risk is high, they're involving law enforcement sooner. The tricky piece with that is that unlike 911 calls where it's based on your address or your cell phone location or your voice over internet protocol, all phone calls to 988 are routed to call centers based on the area code of that cell phone. So as Marcia had mentioned earlier, Commissioner Ward had mentioned earlier, if she's been getting all these phone calls from 800 numbers and I have the same cell phone number since I was 16, if I call, I'm getting Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm not getting Winona County. And if I'm now a suicide risk to myself, it's very cumbersome for their people in Milwaukee to determine my location if I'm unwilling to give it. So there are some speed bumps. The FCC just has not allowed that technology for this service yet. I don't know if that's something they're planning to change, how that looks. That's just what I know about it now. It is not intended to replace mobile crisis teams or crisis stabilization services, 911, law, fire, EMS, but it is meant to provide help to mental health individuals. They call 988. Routed. They can text 988, but they'll be routed based on their area code and it's only available in English. They have several translators that they can utilize for the phone voice calls. They don't have translation for text. They also offer online chatting. They do not respond in person. Again, they utilize partners within the jurisdiction of the individual calling to assist with that. It's not allowed geolocation or call routing based on area, based on location like 911 is. And it's funded through a special revenue account, similar to how 911 is funded currently on cell phone bills. So I think it's 25 cents per month, and that's where they're getting their funding from, as well as additional grant dollars and things like that. So it's that $25 tax to support 988. That's not money that comes through Winona County. Can we transfer callers to 988? Yes.
That was my question. That these calls do not come to you.
They do not come to us. And it's transferable. We can transfer callers to 988. However, the liability with taking that measure in our dispatch center currently is one that I'm not fully comfortable with. So we're still navigating how we want that to look. Next slide, please, Heidi. Okay, the big show, what everybody wanted to come and hear this presentation on. Regionalization versus consolidation, pros and cons. Without having an idea of what Winona County is hoping for or looking towards, things like that, I'm going to provide you with some of the options. And if we want to discuss this further, that's your decision.
Before we start, Jeff, I'm sorry to interrupt. If we want to discuss it, maybe we could postpone that to because we have a very large agenda. This is very important, but
Yes,
if we're going to discuss it, maybe we can hold it for
later date.
because I think we're going on a half hour already and looking at what we have left on the agenda. So,
Yes.
yeah. Please go over it. But this is more of the commissioners. Maybe we could hold that for a follow-up meeting.
Sure.
Thank you.
So there's basically three kinds of buckets that you can do regionalization versus consolidation. There's full-on consolidation where departments are within a single political subdivision. There's regional, there's multi-agency public safety, and non-public safety. So public works, things like that. And then public-private. And that's full-on, everybody in the same building, everybody shares the resources, everything full-on, everybody's together. There's the option of co-location, which could be different agencies occupying a single facility. Employees belong to different organizations or administrations, so the space might be shared or separated based on how that co-location effort might look. Technology might be shared or separated, and then dedicated console positions for each entity. So an example of that would be, and I'm not giving an example of something, I'm just providing an example. So if Winona Police Department and Winona Sheriff's Office had separate dispatch centers, we could co-locate in the same building. If the City of Winona Police Department wanted to use one type of public safety software and the Sheriff's Office wanted to use another, we could dedicate an individual to each of those agencies, but operate out of the same space essentially. There's also the third option of virtual consolidation, which would be shared services and centralized network equipment. Winona County already participates in two versions of a virtual consolidation, that being our 911 call handling equipment, as well as our logging equipment that records our radios and phone calls. So we're already utilizing a virtual consolidated option. And from the study that had been done 2011, I believe they had mentioned in that study that consolidation of resources instead of sites and employees is one of the better routes to go, and we're already utilizing that and seeing some cost saving benefits there.
And to Jennifer's credit and everything, the Emergency Communications Board, which is, I think, 11 counties and the city of Rochester, we do share, and we're always looking at especially software systems
Yes.
of multi-county jurisdictions using that, that to reduce costs.
Yes, we do work very well in the sandbox together. In fact, the logging has expanded outside of just the southeastern region of Minnesota to the central region as well. So those are ways that, makes us a bigger fish. And when it comes to being a small fish with large vendors, it really helps us to ensure cost savings and good services. Next slide, please, Heidi. So some of the pros and cons, why to consolidate? It could improve services. It could reduce duplications of efforts. If a call came in St. Charles that, let's say a call came in Olmsted and it's in Dover and they wanted St. Charles ambulance, instead of them calling us and saying, hey, can you send St. Charles fire or ambulance over to Dover? That call would come into the same PSAP. They could dispatch that accordingly. Technology benefits, resource sharing, and then decentralized similar services. Some of the challenges to it is not having buy-in from all of the entities that could be involved. Again, we've seen that with the region when it comes to the logging and the phone. Now, they might not have been interested initially, but we've seen each of those items grow in participation from the region. Loss of local control. One sheriff might feel differently about how dispatch operates versus another sheriff. So then it becomes confusing for your staff, policies, procedurally, things like that. And then it could also impact your a decreased level of service for non-emergency related calls. If I'm getting 20 emergency calls at once and I've got 5 non-emergent calls holding, they're going to see a significantly longer wait time versus what they receive now in Winona County on our own. So with that, that is my last slide. Thank you for bearing with me. I apologize. I warned you in advance. It was going to be a lot. So if you have any other questions to save time, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. You have my contact information. I'll be happy to expand further if needed. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
She's at these regional meetings. Jennifer is a positive force in directing how, other staff do. So I do appreciate, we don't always agree, but I do appreciate your input because you're the working part of this. So I think part of it needs to be, and I kid and I tease, but do we put the chip here or do we put the chip up here? How do we track people? That's the big thing.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
The next item is 7.3, review approved draft local option sales tax referendum resolution for financing of replacement jail. I believe when we last discussed this, Commissioner Elsing made and Commissioner Ward some great points about possibly rewording the draft language, right?
Yes.
And that's been changed. So it now,
Yes, we've redrafted it.
Commissioner Elsing.
Only, this is good. The only thing that I would say is wordy,
Yeah.
a little wordy. And
Very wordy.
The other thing would be at the last line, it says this local sales tax will not increase Winona County property taxes. Can we highlight, bold, capitalize not in there so that, so they actually, yeah, well, at least not, so they can see that this will not increase your Winona County property taxes. Obviously, it's going to increase the sales tax, which we define out very good on the first side. And then I don't know if we need, although very informational, do we need the description for the jail? I would maybe just say we could cut out that one spot and just leave and start at if the question, by voting yes, if the question is approved, the county is only, or maybe we could just shorten that just a touch.
Yeah, seriously, if I go into the ballot booth, am I going to read this? I'm sorry, no. There's too much there. I do have to ask, and I did at AMC, several counties have done this recently. And I don't know, I asked Administrator Holte to check into it, and it's been a short turnaround time. I would like to see what these other counties present, what did their ballot look like? And because they did pass, I think I want to say Carlton County was one of the most recent ones.
This one was based on Isanti. And they put information in it.
Okay, but it just,
so
to me, with Commissioner Elsing, there's too much there. Again, we're assuming our public is going to be educated on this issue, which we need to educate. We can't promote, but we do need to put an education campaign together. But if this is on the ballot, we're going to have multiple page ballots, paper alone. It's just, there's too much there. Yeah.
Can we legally, is this required? Are these legal requirements or could we?
No, we could just, I think the first paragraph has to stay. But the second paragraph, we could cut down to just by saying.
Which are you talking on the last page 207?
Sorry, yeah.
All
So-
you would see on the ballot.
Is those two paragraphs?
This is.
Oh,
just-
okay.
This is the
Okay.
resolution
Okay, then
to create.
But it's still a lot. But it's still a
I
lot.
was kind of wondering, you're making a big deal. I'm like, it's not that bad.
Well, I thought it was the whole thing, and you know how we like words and newspaper.
Yeah, no, it'd be, but
So
even here.
Ms. Sonneman and I
you know,
are going to have a meeting with a Todd Stone. He is the managing director and chief of staff of RAP Strategies. And he worked with Jackson County, Minnesota, recently on a sales tax referendum.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so.
Did theirs pass?
A meeting to, yes.
Okay, I only want to work with people that got a pass.
Yeah.
Well, and the person who actually started this company is somebody I worked with when I was at the Public Utilities Commission. This was unknown to me when Ms. Holte sent this to me yesterday, and I said, I think I know that guy.
Okay,
So he's very good.
So Ms. Holte, should we table this?
Table it until we-
that discussion
I would
takes place?
recommend that we do, and then you could have further discussion about what these gentlemen recommends.
yeah,
And-
and
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, and then like I say, I'm pretty sure it was Carlton County that just recently passed. I guess you could check with AMC who recently had
Yeah, there's
success on the
multiple
sales
counties.
tax.
You're
And what
right,
did
there
they
were-
do?
Mhm.
And Commissioner Elsie, if you, I liked what you were saying about there's 2 or 3 sentences like in that second paragraph that got to be taken out.
Or could be just very simplified.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just feel like we need to get this right.
Yes.
That's what I feel.
I agree.
So we'll table it because
So is that a motion? by
So moved.
Olson?
I'll motion the table.
motion by Commissioner Olson, second by Commissioner Elsing to table that. All in favor, say, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is tabled. Thank you, Commissioner Holte. Thank you, Ms. Sonneman, for continuing to work on
In
that.
its own paragraph.
Yeah.
Next item is 7.4, discuss and or appoint citizen advisory committee members. We have, looks like, correct me if I'm wrong, we're talking about basically health and human services, right?
And Simsha,
And some, correct. Yep, thank you.
but I do have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Ward.
I do have a question on the Health and Human Services. And Commissioner Meyer is referring to a statute. Are you referring to statute 402.03?
I didn't bring it with me today.
But that's advisory committee?
We have both, yeah, oh, thank you so much.
Is that
Is
the-
there one for everybody?
No,
Oh,
that's
is-
just my working papers.
Yeah, is
You'll
that the
have to
one,
Flip through.
is
Yeah.
that the one you're referring to?
So there is, yeah, the statute says, yeah, it's 402.03 Advisory Committee.
Okay, so with that statute, and of course that is, and again, maybe we're muddying it because that's a human service board.
Yeah.
And ours is a health and human service board, but it does specifically say 1/3 members of the advisory shall be persons receiving services provided by human service. Up to 1/3 may be providers or employees of providers of services and must include representative of a private provider. And then at least one member shall be, now this was a corrections advisory board, which I don't know that we have. But I guess I'm unclear currently if we're even following this with 1/3 being
Oh,
receiving.
my very question about whether we need to revisit it or not, I totally agree. But so we have a resolution 2019-065, right?
Yes,
That's our own resolution?
that
Yeah.
is for the Health and Human Services Advisory
Yeah.
Board.
Okay, I didn't pull that one up.
Yeah, and it says 2 commissioners, right?
That's okay.
Um,
I'm just wondering if we're even following our rules now, because I don't know
Two
who these
members.
people.
2 members shall be local service providers and 1 member a representative of consumer/client interests. So we do have 1 person on there now that represents a service provider. And that's Andy Krantz. He works at Hiawatha Valley Mental Health.
Right.
So my goal was to try and at least fill what our resolution says. And so I had talked to Vanessa Southworth at Winona Health, and she had recommended the applicant,
Anderson.
yep, Jackie Henderson, who works at the hub. She's in charge of the hub.
But is that considered a service provider, the hub?
Yeah.
Health and human service provider?
Because they do referrals to us.
Okay, kind of a stretch. Okay.
And then I had spoken to a couple individuals, Mark Jacobson and then Sarah Fan Budd, either one of whom I think would be excellent. And I'm not going to say any more in public. You have their applications.
Okay, but what did our resolution say? 1 provider,
2,
2 providers. So who's the second? You're saying that the hub person is the second provider,
yeah, and we already have one that is Andy Krantz,
right?
Yep.
Okay, and what's the other area that you're trying to fulfill?
someone who's a recipient of services.
Okay, that we
one of the people here would meet that qualification, that category.
The other two individuals, Mr. Jacobson and Ms. Van Bud, either one of them would meet that qualification.
They're receiving services.
Two commissioners, two providers, and one recipient.
Yep.
Those are the 5 we need.
Oh, we already got the commissioner.
Well, yeah, we got the commissioners. I'm just saying, as a total for this group, that's what we need.
But we have two openings.
Yes, and 3 applications. So I would move that we appoint Ms. Henderson as an individual employed by a service provider.
Is that it for now?
That's my motion, yeah.
Second.
So we're gonna do it one by one. Okay,
Let's
so
do that.
Commissioner, a motion by Commissioner Meyer, seconded by Commissioner Olson to appoint, I'm sorry, Jackie Henderson.
Yes.
To the Health and Human Services Committee. Any other discussion? One more time.
Well, again, if we're trying to follow this statute, there was responsibilities and such too. The funding, we're supposed to discuss funding and tasks and a lot of things. And I don't know that we've even come close to getting into that. But that's part of the committee's responsibility, not part of the.
Yeah, and I would
individual
certainly be open to revisiting the resolution to bring it into language that is consistent with what the statute, because we did have quite a bit of debate on the issue.
Yes, and I would even go one step further. This is something Commissioner Ward has talked about before. I think we all have is
Yes.
considering splitting it back into 2 committees because one person is clearly public health and the other 2, I think, are more human services. Is like maybe at the advisory committee level to have it be, Commissioner Ward, you and I have talked about this, have it be have it be more focused on public health and more focused on human services and maybe occasionally have joint meetings.
Right.
But there is Commissioner Holt, Ms. Holte, I'm sorry.
I really don't desire to be commissioner. Thank you.
Smart.
Bless you all, but
Mhm.
I would ask that Ms. Sonneman and I have some time to consult on that topic
Yep.
because there are legal issues
Yep.
to being combined
For
versus
future, yeah.
separating. So if we could bring that back for the
Yep.
board.
Finding the people to do it.
I think we have enough people.
Yeah.
Commissioner.
Well, and we've done it in the past. We've had separate committees and the funding is so totally separate. Human service is a different funding source than public health. And really my observation at the committee, unfortunately, it gets dominated by human service functions and public health gets 2 minutes at the end of the meeting when everybody's ready to go home. But it is distinct, definitive, different funding and function services.
There's definitely.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so are we okay to, any other discussion on the motion with Ms. Henderson? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. That's one appointment. That leaves one more vacancy. And the problem is that they're both very qualified
I think
people
so, yes.
and we can't appoint them both.
No. Well, I suppose we'd make one what did we do originally? We had,
Ex officio.
we can make an ex officio. They wouldn't have voting ability.
Yeah, but we did that at the start of last year as well.
Right.
And when someone dropped off, then that individual
Mhm.
is now a regular member. of the committee.
Well, I find it interesting. We got a chair of a physics department wanting to be in health and human services. So maybe they would
Well,
look
if
at,
you read the full, I mean, their family
Yeah.
has experience.
yeah, I know. But her profession is physics and that's very definitive. It's not the gray area of science in my,
But that's not why she's applying, yes.
no, but I think the mindset of somebody that's in that area may be more, look at the facts. And, but I don't know any of these people personally, no.
Like, facts people. Would someone care to make a motion?
So with that said, I will agree to appoint Dr. Sarah Van Bud to our Health and Human
Second.
Services at this time.
So where were you going to consider Mark Jacobson as ex officio?
Do you like that in your motion?
We can if they have a desire to,
Is that okay, Commissioner Warren?
yeah, I'll amend to put the other applicant
So Sarah Fond, that's the
primary
then
and
Mark
Mark
Jacobson
as
is
a
ex officio.
ex officio.
Go son.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. I think that leaves Semcra left. That's gonna be easier, correct?
Do we,
You have a choice of one.
do we have the authority or does SEMCR have to do it themselves?
Actually, we don't have the authority. SEMSHA operates under a different set of rules. I think we can recommend.
It's by the recommendation of the county board.
Yeah,
Oh.
and then SEMSHA itself has to
Approve.
approve.
So ultimately, you need to recommend they don't have to do this. So we just putting a person in there,
Or we're going to
Yeah.
forward a recommendation.
our only one.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's right.
Yep.
I would move to recommend Eric Severs.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Meyer, second by Commissioner Olson to appoint Eric Severs to recommend to appoint Eric Severs to the SEMCR board. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, that takes us to item 7.5, receive monthly finance and budget update for December 2023.
Fine.
Four, thank you. Oh, yeah.
Oh, three, I guess, yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Mhm.
If it suits the board due to the amount of time we have, if you'd like to move 7.5, 7.6, and what is now 7.7, which was 6.12
Mhm.
to the next board meeting so that you could do your committee of the board. I'm just proposing if you'd want to do that or not.
Thank you for asking. These shouldn't be, 7.5 shouldn't be that long, right? And what was 6.2 shouldn't be that long, should it, Commissioner Ward?
6.12.
Yeah.
Well, and that can be, we can delay that. I mean,
Okay.
I think we should have a discussion on our reserves and
Okay, so
we can move that to a future meeting.
we'll,
Is that a motion?
I'll move to I'll make a motion to move 6.12 to a future agenda,
It's actually 7.7.
which, yeah, we changed to 7.6.
should we also move 7.5 and 7.6 as well?
Well, 7.6, there's been articles in the newspaper. Anybody got burning questions? Or are you not ready to really read it in the newspaper?
Well,
Commissioner Bing.
it's the issue is that it's going to take time to have
Yes.
discussion.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
in the interest of getting through committee of the board,
Mhm.
I'm trying to suggest.
We have people here ready to present for 10.1. I think we still have time.
Do we,
Commissioner Olson?
question? Our next agenda, is it full?
It's growing.
It's going. Just, are we kicking the can here?
New Agenda Management 101.
We're having the presentation on water, the
Yeah.
aquifers and.
Do we, if I may, do we feel a burning desire to discuss 7.5 for the sake of public, or do we think we can delay 2 weeks? That would be the only
No,
concern.
7.5 or 7.6.
Or excuse me, 7.6,
Yeah.
yes. So that would just be a
I mean,
question for the board.
Yeah, it's up to the board. I don't know that there's a burning
yeah, it
need
was,
to.
your notes were very
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
So if commissioners have questions, please let Ms. Pulte know, or you could let Commissioner Ward and I know, just individually, not both of us, et
Yeah.
cetera.
And maybe it'll keep my blood pressure under
So
management.
do you want
today.
to, amend yours for 7.5, 7.6, and 7.7?
I can amend the motion to
Table.
just move to the next meeting agenda and prioritize them. Maybe shuffle something else. Because I think it's important discussions.
Okay,
I will second the motion to 7.5, 7.6, and 7.7 to be
Yeah.
moved to the next
motion
motion.
by Commissioner Ward, seconded by Commissioner Elsing to table item 7.5, 7.6, 7.7. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. That takes us to committee reports and communications. And then we'll adjourn, then we'll go on committee of the board, right? Commissioner Ward had some items.
Yeah. So on Friday, we had our SHAC, State Community Health Service Advisory Committee meeting. And I did ask the Commissioner of Health, Brooke Cunningham, not to send truckloads of bottled water to Winona County, because that'll only create another problem of plastic pollution. But to work on, the water issue, the nitrates in the water, and look at, short-term fixes and long-term fixes. And she agreed. It's kind of nice to have the ear of the Commissioner of Health. I also asked her if she felt it was important for the great state of Minnesota to have the new University of Minnesota president being a medical doctor. because we have a real quandary going on in our medical education and providers and everything to keep the goal is a lot of times is if you train medical people in your state, they tend to have a tendency to stay in your state. And so I know our University of Minnesota Medical School and hospitals are working on a lot of things there. So she didn't have a definitive opinion on that yet, but thought it was a good thing to have a medical person. A big announcement, big day for townships. It's township elections. Make sure you get out and vote in a township. 1 or 2 votes can be very critical. And I know a lot of supervisors and clerks and everything are up for election. So please do attend your township elections. And then for a future board action, I would like to put on a discussion of our ground rules, meeting decorum number 8.
Can you summarize what that one is?
It is, yep, it's printed on our, I think it's page 4 of our agenda. And everybody should have a copy so they can read it.
1 year rule,
Pardon me?
the 1 year.
Yes, the whole thing there, yes. It should be on page 4,
Number 8.
number 8.
Great. On page 4, number 8 is commissioners will refer to each other at board meetings.
No, page 4, under.
Or number 8, it's at the top.
At the top.
Yeah.
Oh, that 8, not that 8. Okay, the
No,
other.
The other 8.
The other 8.
Top 8.
I was like, wait a minute.
It's correct. It's number 8.
Yeah, number 8, under meeting, I think meeting decorum.
Was that a motion?
That is a motion to put that on for future,
about that.
future agenda. No, we have not.
a year ago.
No, we have not.
I'll second it.
If you can document it, please provide the documentation.
Right, so there's been a motion and a second, so that will appear on a future committee of the board for discussion, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else, Commissioner Ward?
No,
Okay. I believe that ends the general business meeting, correct? Well, I think
Move to adjourn.
a motion by Commissioner Meyer, seconded by Commissioner Elson to adjourn. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so we are adjourned. Should we take a 5-minute break?
Yes, please.
When we come back, we'll resume with the committee of the. First item on the agenda is 10.1, receive presentation from Family and Children's Center. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes.
Well, good morning. Want to thank you for allowing us the opportunity to talk about Family and Children's Center. My name is Carrie Hahn. I am the Director of Minnesota Programs.
And I'm Leah Morgan. I am the clinical director at Family and Children's Center. I have a PhD and also a licensed psychologist. So I also work with kids and families.
Next slide, please. The Family and Children's Center is a regional, private, non-for-profit agency that provides a continuum of services designed to strengthen families and promote individual well-being. And our mission up here on the screen pretty much says what I just said. Next slide, please.
So FCC has roots that date back to the 1800s, with services being provided in Wisconsin and in Minnesota. In 1983, Family Service Association and the Lacrosse Home for Children merged into one agency. Then the success in the lacrosse services eventually expanded to Black River Falls, Sparta, and Viroqua. And so then the history here in Minnesota started with the Margaret Simpson Home in Winona in the late 1880s. In 1999, there was a request of the area school district for us to offer alternative education services within the school. And then since that time, the services here in Minnesota have more than quadrupled in size. So today we're one of the largest private providers of both child and adult behavioral and mental health services in Western Wisconsin and Southeastern Minnesota with more than 20 programs. Next slide.
So in your packet, and I also have flyers here of our different Winona programs. And I also have it listed on our screen here. So we have a variety of programs that work with children, adults, and families. And we also have quite a few clients that are involved in a multitude of services that we offer. We may have an individual who is in our hub program, but they're also seeking outpatient services with a therapist. Maybe their child is going to day treatment. I'm not going to go into each of these programs, but we're just going to highlight a few of them. So next slide.
So the first program we're going to talk about is our ARMS program, which is our Adult Rehabilitative Mental Health Services Program. So the purpose of this program is to provide skills for adults in our community that may be struggling with different skills. And so you can see the skills listed up there: community engagement, employment-related skills, household management, interpersonal communication, mental health symptom management, self-care, and crisis assistance. And so our workers in the ARMS program go out into the community and they meet people in their homes, take them grocery shopping if they need to, fill out applications if they need to, kind of whatever life skills that that person needs to stay within the community and be successful there. And so right now we have 18 clients in our ARMS program. We have 12 males and 4 females. Age ranges from 18 to 67. And our most common diagnoses are anxiety and depression with that group of people. And our length of stay is about 2 years within that program, where we can kind of stabilize their living situation, their job, and that sort of thing, and then they can graduate. Next slide.
Hiawatha Hall is our intensive residential treatment service, or IRTS, and we also provide residential crisis stabilization. We've been licensed to do residential crisis stabilization for quite a few years, but with staffing and COVID, it was kind of difficult to have that service, but now that is something that we have offered since February. With our IRTS program, it is a 90-day stay. It's open for adults with persistent and severe mental illness. Some of the diagnoses we see are schizophrenia, bipolar, depression, anxiety, substance use. So these individuals can come voluntarily, or they can be referred or on commitment. It's a 90-day stay, very intensive treatment that's provided. We have individualized treatment plans, crisis plans. We do have a full-time nurse that is at the facility. We also have a full-time licensed practical clinical counselor who's there providing services for those individuals.
Commissioner Meyer?
What's the physical location of Hiawatha Hall?
It is on Broadway.
It's in Winona?
It's in Winona. Yep, it's an Victorian home, so it's right in the community, because that's the purpose of it too, is having it in the community. So they're integrated into the community, but also getting some support from our case managers.
Broadway and Grand?
Isn't it
I
on,
believe it's great.
isn't it on 7th Street?
That's Wabasha?
Wabasha? Yeah. Or
Nichols. Well, we get.
there might be 2 locations.
27
Broadway, yeah.
Yeah.
It's right in the corner.
It's right in the corner.
Street for me.
So if someone is having a mental health crisis, can the sheriff's office or the police bring them to your facility?
So with our residential crisis stabilization, they have to be referred to us by mobile crisis. So if there's somebody who's having a mental health crisis, mobile crisis is called, there's an assessment that's done. If they determine the person is appropriate for crisis stabilization, then they would contact us. So the purpose of that is to avoid hospitalization.
Sure.
So for residential crisis stabilization, it's a 10-day stay. It could be as little as 1 to 10. And the purpose is to get that person the resources they need to go back into the community. So maybe they need a therapist, maybe they need resources at the county. It's giving them that support that they need so they can return pre-crisis and avoid going into the hospital and being held at the hospital.
And it was just opened in February?
Yes,
Oh, awesome.
yes.
The IRTS facility was there longer
Yes.
than that, but the residential crisis center was just opened. in
Mhm.
February.
Fantastic. Yeah, Marcia?
I know a big part of all this mental health and everything is the lack of insurance coverage. So does insurance cover any of this for individuals? But they have to have insurance, right?
Correct.
So does even the minimal, like say somebody's on the state plan that's, low based on income, I believe, and such, does that plan provide coverage?
In fact, that plan's required usually
Okay.
for these programs because commercial insurance doesn't always cover the cost of what these programs are. And so state plans are probably the easiest to work with to get people in.
Okay, so, and do they cover your cost? I mean, I know insurance is atrocious for how much they cut, what the
We also
dollars.
have a rate from the state. So there's room and board and there's also treatments. So room and board is covered by the state. They give us a daily rate, and then insurance covers the treatment part of it.
Okay, so you're making out okay?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So again, should there be we all talk about signing up people for services. Is there part of a service that signs them up for these health insurance plans?
So
Is
with
that part of-
our arms provider, if a person is struggling with insurance, they can help them with that. hub, we have a community connector that can help a person sign up for insurance. And also, if a person is referred to Hiawatha Hall and they don't have the proper insurance, our coordinator will work with the case manager and try to get them on the proper insurance.
Okay.
And we
all right,
work with the county too, because through Winona County, there's adult mental health case management.
Right.
And oftentimes case managers will help get the insurance in line so then we can do the treatment too. So
Okay. All right. Yeah. It's a necessary evil in our society,
It is.
insurance.
It
I don't-
definitely is.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Next slide.
And so I know you guys talked earlier about the hub. We also have a hub community connector located within the Family and Children's Center. We work with Live Well Winona through that, and we have somebody who works then within our facility. And there, it's just to address the person comes to you, they don't have the services they need. This person connects them to the services that they need. And so people who have food insecurity, housing insecurity, mental health concerns, or 5+ emergency department visits in the past year are all eligible to receive, to connect with our community connector, who will then connect them to community services to help stabilize their position. And you can see the community health worker as from this graphic here, they're in the middle. And then all of these different pathways are what they're trying to give to the people to help them stabilize within our community.
And a lot of it's focused also on education piece, educating the individual on how to find these services themselves. So if they don't have a community health worker with them, or maybe they can pass that information on to somebody else that they do know who's struggling with finding a dentist or a doctor or family planning services.
Next slide.
A new service that we have provided recently is child welfare targeted case management. So with this service, we have a caseworker who works with youth who are in extended foster care. So the case manager will help that individual find, again, services. They're finding jobs for them. They're helping them with job applications. They're helping them get some insurance. They're helping them get driver's license, finding a place to live. So when they do move out of the home, they have a means to provide for rent and food and helping them with budget. In order to be a part of this program, the eligibility is they had to be completing a secondary education program or be employed at least 80 hours a month or engage in a program or activity designed to promote or remove barriers to employment, or if they have a mental health condition that prevents them from any of those, they can receive targeted case management services.
Double checking. You said youth aged 18 to 21?
Yes, they're adults, but
Yeah.
yeah, they're in extended foster.
Probably
care.
more like young adults.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
It's not 8 to 21. It's truly 18 to 21. Okay.
Yes, yep. So these are individuals that were in the foster care system.
Yep, and have aged out and then
Correct.
the transition.
The foster care is required. I mean, they had to have been in foster care to access this program.
Yes, and in order to get the extended foster care, they have to meet some of those eligibility requirements also.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, next slide, please.
The next program we're going to talk about is our safe visitation program. So the purpose of this program is to facilitate safe visits between a parent and child when the child has been removed from the home by CPS. And so we have fully supervised visits where our employees work with the county staff to determine how many visits there should be every week, how many hours of visits should there be any week while the reunification process is in process, or whether there is whatever the CPS or courts decide. So we have fully supervised visits, partially supervised visits, check-ins, and then also a safe exchange where we can help people exchange or children. If it's not safe for the parties to meet together, we can be that person that then helps move the children from one parent to the other. We also have part of our safe visitation program is our safe haven program. So if there is some reason that the two parental parties should not have contact with each other, we have our building set up in such a way that one parent can drop off the child and we make sure that that other parent leaves and then the other parent can come and pick up the children for safety concerns. So this is all about facilitating safe visitation, which also allows the kids to continue to see both their parents.
And the natural progression is to start with the fully supervised visits and then go down to those check-ins with the hope of reunification. So it all depends on the progress of the parent. There's constant communication with the county workers just to make sure that the parents are meeting the requirements that they're supposed to. Our monitors report back what's going on during the visit. They're not there to parent. They're not there to correct anything unless it's a safety concern. Then yes, they're going to jump in and help out with it. But it's more just reporting back to what they're seeing with that parent. There's between 70 to 90 visits scheduled per week. It does increase over the summertime just because there's more opportunity during the summer for families to have visits. Some visits can be as little as an hour up to 8 hours, just really depending on what.
Mr. Chair, is that 70 to 90 in Winona County alone? Not
Yes.
in the region? Wow.
Mhm. Yep.
And oftentimes that's one family will have several visits. during-
Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm.
And then like Leanne mentioned, we have that Safe Haven, and that is a grant program. So that is a program that can be offered to anybody. So if there are families that are going through a custody battle and it's just not safe for the parents to see each other, but they still want to have custody with or visits with the children, we do provide that service, and that is free to the family.
Do you have any trend mapping? Is this escalating? Is it leveled off? What did COVID do to all of this?
I think it's about the same. I've been with the agency for about 2 years now, and I don't see a downward. I see it kind of leveling out. Like the 70 to 90 is pretty much what we typically see. We have had some requests in other counties to provide this service as well.
Uh-huh.
You know, we do have some families that go through the program rather quickly. And then we have some that they're doing well, and then they struggle themselves. So then there's a setback, and then they work the program again. So it really is dependent upon the parent.
Okay, but you don't see a big spike. It's kind of, okay. All right, okay, that's encouraging, I mean, in a way.
And then also, you know, the individuals that are part of our safe visitation, we can refer them to ARMS, we can refer them to outpatient, or we can refer them to our hub program. So it's nice that we do have all these services where we can wrap around them and give them additional services. Okay, next slide, please. We also have tracking. So this is for adults and juveniles. So with adults, we do provide supervised and unsupervised urinalysis. The unsupervised is because if we have a female worker who is collecting a sample of a male client, they're not in the bathroom with them collecting it, but they're making sure that the area is clear of anything that they may use to tamper the sample, and then just collecting the sample for them. We have also been helping out treatment drug court, while they're going through the jails and getting staffing. We did have some individuals come over to our facility for their analysis. And those are random. They don't know when it's happening. They just know that they have so many throughout the week that they have to get done. We call them and say, we need you to come in for a sample. And then for the juveniles, again, we provide the urinalysis, but we also do curfew checks. And that's based off of what the probation officer has indicated, that they need to be home at a certain time. So we have staff that call or physically go and check to make sure that they are where they are supposed to be.
So how many clients do you have in these categories? Do you
So
know?
with our adults right now, I believe we have 7 or 8. Juveniles, I believe we have 5 right now. I've seen a decrease in that since I've started. When I started, it was a lot higher, but there has been a decrease in that.
Okay, and are you following the marijuana rules and regulations? Will there be an increase in, of course, I don't think you can check it with urine. I mean, are you going to be involved in something like that? Is that good? Well, of course, it's going to be legal. So, I mean, can you test them?
But not under.
The youth,
Yeah,
the juveniles.
21.
We test, and it's based off of what the probation officer or the county tells us to test them for. So they'll say, if marijuana shows up, then you report to us. If it's, something else shows up, report to us. There are some drug interactions, like if they're taking a certain drug, it can show up as something in their system when it's actually a prescribed medication that they have. So we just go based off of what the juvenile justice and probation officer lets us know.
You weren't here for our earlier meeting. We compared to the CSI and the FBI show.
They were here.
They can tell you exactly what it was. No questions.
All right, next slide, please.
Right, and then the last program we're going to talk about today, but certainly not the only program we have here in Winona, is our Children's Therapeutic Support Services. So this is our CTSS programming. This is our day treatment programming where we have kids that come to us for 3 hours every day. We do 2 hours of skill work and 1 hour of therapy with the kids, and that's 5 days a week. Right now we have 2 different groups that we're running. We're running our, we call it our Bridges program. So that's for kids ages 3 to 8. And they come in, they get 2 hours of skills and an hour of group therapy in the morning. And then in the afternoon, we have adolescents come to our building and they get, again, 2 hours of skills and 1 hour of therapy every day. And then along with our CTSS, we're also out in the community doing individual, family, and group skills with kiddos at school. We're going to homes to work with parents to do some parenting skills, family skills, and that sort of thing. And so these are kids that we write an assessment on, and we think that their level of need, their level of care is higher than what maybe an outpatient setting, like 1 day of therapy every week, might not be enough to stabilize their mental health needs. And so then we would refer them to this type of program and trying to stabilize them, reduce their mental health symptoms, get them back into school and functioning well there, and then maybe step down into kind of an outpatient setting. And so that's what our CTSS program kind of helps with.
What kind of things are you teaching a 3 to 9-year-old as far as skills? What are you exposing them to?
So we do a lot about safety, about personal boundaries, about responding in non-aggressive ways to big feelings. We talk about a lot of that also is family involvement. The kids come to us, but we also then do family therapy with the family, because a 3-year-old can learn a lot of skills and do therapy by themselves, but when they go home and if nothing's changed there, then nothing will change, right? And so we do the individual and group work within our setting, but we also then go into their home.
Okay. But so, I mean, again, a 3 to 9-year-old, I mean, are you teaching them how to play without being on a computer?
Well, yes, we do. Teach them how to
yeah.
play and how to play safely, right? Because a lot of times we have kids that come to us and they'll be playing a game, but it'll be so aggressive and so rough, and then it'll turn into fighting and that sort of thing. And so we work on, let's play this game together. And when we get disappointed, when we get frustrated, let's talk about it, but we don't have to hit, we don't have to attack, right?
Okay.
And so it's about regulation.
Okay. Any really truly life skills like, personal hygiene, caring for themselves, because,
For sure.
like brushing, big thing we battle with is, brushing their teeth.
Yes.
And I mean, life skills, if they're, my opinion, and I'm not but if they have good life skills and interpersonal skills, they coexist. They're feeling good about themselves and can play and enjoy the sunshine.
We certainly do.
Okay.
Yeah. How to wash your hands after using the restroom, how to, like all those little pieces that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That need to be done, reinforced sometimes.
Absolutely.
And that is one thing that we did find out through COVID is the younger kids because they weren't in school, they didn't have that socialization. They were seeing a lot of anxiety and a lot of attention deficit and a lot of depression with the younger kids. And that's when we started, bringing back our Bridges program, because we knew there was such a need in this area for those younger children. They didn't have a socialization because they were at home.
But I am amazed, I don't go regularly, but going to some of the public parks around here, and there's no kids out there playing. It's kind of sad. I mean, they should be out there playing.
Yeah.
That's actually something that we do with our kids. We go, because we're so close because we're right on Sarnia.
Yeah.
And we're so close to Lake Park.
Yeah.
And so we go and we play on the equipment, and that's one of the skills that we work on is how do we move our bodies? How do we get exercise? How do we be healthier?
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Good.
Next slide, please. So there's our contact information if you want to reach out to us. Again, also in your packet is more information about our Winona programs, but I do have some flyers here if you want the physical copy of it, because we didn't touch on everything, but this does list all of our programs.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
doing what you do every day. That takes us to item 10.2, discuss community solar reimbursement rates, potential joint action.
Yep, and I see that John Howard from the city of Winona is on in case we have questions for him. County Attorney Sonneman, Administrator Holte, and I attended the Public Utilities Commission meeting. Their ruling was to move to a lower rate of reimbursement, which would cost the county significantly, as not to mention the city, and also I understand the school district, Winona Area Public School District. So the city of Winona is partnered for sure with St. Cloud, St. Paul, and Minneapolis, but John indicated to me when I spoke to him yesterday that they are looking at about 15 units of government, not just cities, I think some counties and the Met Council as well, that are looking at their way of filing a joint action. Apparently, the process would be to file a motion for reconsideration to the Public Utilities Commission. Once that is done, then that would open the door to legal action to a lawsuit if that was what was.
So
wanted
we're
to
not to legal, it's just an appeal, more like an appeal.
Sort of like that. And I think my ask is really just for staff time to participate with the other municipalities and see if it's a path that we want to pursue. I'm not asking to spend any money at this point or make a commitment, really just to have our staff participate.
Can
A
I
question,
just know-
Karen, and then Josh, sorry.
The PUC has not issued the formal order yet, and there's some, I don't know, I wouldn't call it a rumor, but that they may, they did not make any findings really during the hearing that
Oh,
Commissioner Meyer and court administrator. Now you're a court administrator. Okay, county administrator.
Gotta switch hats.
And I attended. Yeah, we would need to review that order and
okay.
determine what actually the findings are and what we could provide a notice, to ask for reconsideration or whatever the legal thing, the legal path is, if you wanted to do that. So we really need to review the order first before it comes out.
Yep.
Or when it comes out.
And what
So.
John had said yesterday, County Attorney Sonneman, is that when it comes out, then there's 20 days.
I'm not sure,
Usually a
that
short
may be, I
turnaround.
mean, that's for a civil case. This is administrative law, so, again, I have an expert in my house who lives. with me. So, and I did, work at the Public Utilities Commission, so I'd have to double check the actual notice or the response requirements, so. But I think, key is to see what exactly they are using for findings and what they're actually, what their conclusions were.
It's
and
not a final, I thought there was an article in the Star Tribune that it was a 5-0 or 5-0 vote.
It was
wasn't
a 5-0
But
vote.
they issue some kind of a written statement.
Yeah,
Okay, so that hasn't come out. yet.
that hasn't come out. yet.
Okay,
Good luck.
okay,
Yeah, good luck, yeah.
Josh.
I just make an obvious comment. It's gotta all get paid for somehow. It's either they're gonna just pass it on to people buying the power, So whether we win or lose, it's still in essence gonna cost all our constituents money. Really, in the long run, that's the bad part. What it didn't prove to me, and I'm not against solar, I'm not against wind, but although we drive up and down the road, and we gotta look at all the towers and all these solar fields, which we have to do that living in the rural districts, but it just proved a little bit of a point that it wasn't as cost effective as what we thought, especially when you pull the tax subsidy away from it. That's what's disappointing is ultimately now we paid for the infrastructure. We invested into it both on a tax base, private sector, and now they're saying, sorry, it's not working out. You need to foot the bill
Right.
twice.
Plus they want to
Twice.
increase the rates.
We already paid through our taxes and now we gotta pay through it through increases.
Yeah.
And that's what's disappointing.
So is a suggestion then to wait,
Well, just to keep monitoring it.
okay,
Yeah.
and
And
you'll update it?
then I think it would be right if you want
Join,
county administrator Holte and myself to keep work on that. It's an area that it's my old love. Okay,
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago.
And I would say pursue participation with these other municipalities.
that's
if you
really
think
important.
Yeah, if you think it's
I
worth it.
agree.
Well, and did we check with AMC to see if any other counties bought into this earlier?
I know Sibley County did because they posted a letter.
Okay, I mean, we could poll them, Ms. Holte, and just ask if there's any other counties that bought into
It's
this.
kind of like the opioid settlement. The more we work together,
Uh-huh.
the more successful we can be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly. Commissioner Myers, is that okay for now then?
Yeah, is there consensus that we
After we
Yeah.
hear the updates. yeah.
go ahead and participate?
So just, that won't really cost us more, won't save as much, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
But I think Commissioner Alsing's right. It's gonna cost everybody more.
Yeah.
Because we're ratepayers as individuals and we're ratepayers as a county. But somebody's gonna pay for it.
My message is told you so, it ain't gonna work. You know, we're not there yet, you know, we're getting closer, but ultimately I claimed it from the beginning. It's not the county situation, but without subsidy, that system doesn't work yet.
I think the interesting part that Mr. Sonneman proposed in his filing for the school board was that it isn't just that the school board won't have the savings that they thought. The school board will be the school will be paying 11,000
Right.
a year more than they would have if they had never signed those contracts. And I think the biggest thing is that had we known that the Public Utilities Commission was going to make this sort of a change, I bet Winona County would never have signed up. But for sure, the school board would not because
Right.
they're now upside
Right.
down.
Why are they having to pay that much? We aren't, are we? I mean,
Difference
It
in the
depends on the
contracts.
rates and right.
oh, in the contract that they
Yeah.
signed at the time?
And there were people who we didn't pay any upfront charge.
So
but
they had a clause in their contract saying if something changed, they would,
There were big users that paid some kind of an upfront buy-in fee,
Yeah.
and they're really messed up
to help
now.
pay for the infrastructure
Yeah.
that it costs.
So,
But the sun's shining today and I'm making money.
Not against it.
I can turn 2 light bulbs on tonight.
Yeah, I guess that just
So
to get into
so we're
public.
good then?
housing.
I think so. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You can have an air conditioner.
No, I don't have an air conditioner.
I know, but
We'll get you a smaller window.
So we're good then, right?
Yeah.
So we'll
Have
go on
windows.
to 10.3, discuss Native Advisory Council request.
Also, Carrie Johnson is here. Can we start with asking her to explain what the request is?
Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. Welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Carrie's the director of the History.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And I apologize, I don't have a presentation, but I do have some handouts if you're interested. So just for a quick overview, since this is the first time I think most of you are hearing about this, the Historical Society a few years back took down our Native American exhibit. We decided not to republish one of the primary publications on regional Dakota history because times have changed. Think publications that are 30 years old based on 100-year-old history are not necessarily representative of the histories of Native people. They're the representative of the histories of settler people, which is kind of just the bias of focusing on written history. And so without those publications, without that exhibit, we intend, of course, to represent Native history, but we recognized early on that we needed Native consultation to be able to do that in a way that is inclusive of their own stories. And so that's what initiated this project. It turned out that the city of Winona also had an interest in interpretation in their parks. And so to us, the research is very similar. It's whether it's inside or outside, in our building or out in the city parks. And so I come to you today with the support to initiate advisory council, a Native advisory council, with some help with city funding. And I'm coming to you asking for your interest in also participating. We have the advantage of having already established some good, important Native American relationships in terms of some folks at Prairie Island Indian community and some other regional Dakota, Lakota people. And so that's sort of the premise. And so I will hand you a couple of things. And again, I apologize. I threw this together last week and I don't know that I have copies for everyone. But what I'm giving you is a very rough draft of a scope of work that I'm working up for the Native Advisory Council, and then a budget for 3 years. I think I only made enough.
That's fine.
So
You can email it to me, Carrie.
I will. So I'm including the rough scope of work and the budget, which is pretty set. And then just for reference, something that I feel like might be in the interest of the county, particularly. I'm giving you an example of an MOU that the city of Red Wing has with with the Raleigh Indian community in terms of park sites and development. And I, so essentially our scope includes, of course, the research needs that we're looking to, and one of the main outcomes for the Historical Society will be an oral history project. The history that we can access with Native people is related to their oral tradition, of course, and so that's why we want to initiate an oral history project. Of course, the other ways that we get at Native history are through archaeology and an understanding that way, and I guess that's where I kind of want to dovetail and where I do think that there's an interest possibly at the county level, having several parks of your own, having some plans for potential development in those parks. The idea of kind of creating an understanding with Native communities, particularly Prairie Island Indian community, which is our closest sovereign nation, about how parks would be interpreted, how parks cultural resource management would be handled. Winona area has not done a lot of archaeology, but it is very well known that there were many mounds here, burial mounds, burial sites at the time of settlement. We just don't have the advantage of some places that have done more archaeology or preserved those mounds early on. And so there's always a danger or risk that when any development is done, that there could be graves that are found. And of course, nobody wants to do any disrespect or disservice to human remains. But the one site that you have, that's Stone Point Park, evidently has quite a lot of stone points, hence the name as well. So it's also an opportunity for learning. So this scope of this particular project would be very much research-based, but I think it would behoove all of us to come into it with the intention of also offering the idea that we are, as a community overall, we're here to protect those types of resources and to do a good job in representing histories that haven't necessarily been understood, much less represented properly in the past. So I know I'm springing this on you. The city is putting $7,000 towards this effort in 2024 to help pay an advisory council to travel, to get together. We were advised by two different individuals. One's a Dakota individual who's a professor at Rutgers, but descended Metawakan, so from this region. He and the head of the Native Advisory, the Native Initiatives Department at the Minnesota Historical Society advised us on the structure. So who we are inviting is very deliberate. We are inviting people who are descended from those who were exiled in this area. Of course, they all went a lot of different directions. And so that is the research method that we're approaching, and hence people coming from all over. So I'm open to questions or clarification, but that's kind of the gist.
So just, and again, this isn't facetious in any way, but so in essence, we had an exhibit. We kind of found out that it didn't meet some criteria. We took the exhibit down, and now we have a situation where to meet the criteria to put something up in honor, we have to fund it to meet to their standards. But yet I would just question, if they create the standard, they should create the funding. You know what I mean? That's my thing. And I'm not against it. It's just, in a normal world, that's usually the way that would work. And now we go to the taxpayers to say, I'm sorry, we did this wrong. They want us to represent them, but they want us to pay them, pay for it. So I'd have a hard time if I went to a constituent anywhere in my place and said, is this top priority for you, you know, for the county based on what they're dealing with? So my question is there's traveled the state a lot. I've stayed in many Indian casinos. For many, many years, I have stacks of free hotel cards from them. My question is most of the times where the native populations, I spend a lot of time in the Dakotas on all the reservations, the farmland that's rented, Nebraska, very well in tune with reservations all throughout the Midwest, exceptionally well in tune, down to their rules and everything. And typically, if the reservations want something, if the tribes want something, they basically fund it, because they say, hey, we dictate the standard, we dictate the funding source. The second side that I would say, and again, I'm not against it, I just would challenge it. even the Rochester Historical Society is trying to disassociate themselves with any government funding because they've figured out that private philanthropy drops when government philanthropy kicks in. And so they're trying to pull themselves away from that. And my banker sits on that. One of my bankers sits on that board of directors. So are we looking at, is the majority of the funding for something like this? And again, if they want something, great, figure out how to fund it and let's see if we can work with them. But I would strongly suggest last case resort, public philanthropy through government, just because mimicking literally what Olmsted is doing, seeing the same thing to their historical society and going that route. So is this heavily being sought after by a tribe, that community, or is this more our society saying, hey, we'd like to do this? Do they really desire this for us? Because if they do, this really should be on them. Or is this Winona County saying we'd like to do this in honor of them?
I think that's a good question. I think that we have a responsibility as a local historical organization to properly represent history. So we are certainly motivated by that. We are starting to build relationships where relationships have been sort of broken and built over the years. And so the idea of coming to a sovereign nation with a governmental partnership, I think, seemed very logical. It shows honor, it shows respect that we're working with the sovereign nation, and then honoring those people who have specific skills, just like you honor an architect. You pay people for their skills and for their knowledge. And this is just the start. And so there will be other expenses, certainly. And I do hope to write grants to some of these Native nations and other places to help fund those things. This is the beginning, but I think as a sign of good faith, because this isn't unlike hiring an architect or, another specialist. This is about really building relationships first. And I think that the city has put this funding forward, I think initiates this sense of good faith that we're coming into this as a trustworthy government to government relationship. And I think it will blossom from there, but I think it is the first step. I mean, we are taking it very seriously as a historical society and doing repatriation processes to show that same good faith.
But I mean, are they initiating this or are we initiating this? Or did the tribe, and again, did they come to this and say, we would like you to do this? Or are we coming to them saying, we'd like to do this for you?
We started it.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Because the other side of it too, and what's been, the response on this, and again, you don't have to believe me from anybody, but I have 20 years of dealing with tribes and land bases and contracts and farmer-based situations and being in these different things. Normally, they kind of like to be in their world. They don't like other people meddling with things unless they've got a lot of control. The same reason why they came and said, please don't represent us, right? Is the same reason why normally when they want to be represented, they come to you and say, we want this. So it's just odd to me that we're starting that without them saying, could we do something? Because typically they're kind of, hey, we're in our own world and we want to do what we want. So I just try to figure out where all this just initiated from, that we've got to spend money.
I will make a quick comment, then I'll turn to Chris.
Go ahead. Yeah.
And because Chris Meyer had contacted me about maybe like where to start this conversation. Can we refer it to the Parks and your suggestion was refer it to Parks and Committee?
Yeah.
We're not being asked to do anything right now. Like to me, the idea is interesting. I'm not saying that I would support any kind of funding request. Matter of fact, I lean against it right now, but maybe just refer it to Parks and Environment Committee and have the conversation begin there. That's what you were asking for, right?
Yeah, I don't have 100% clarity. What we're hearing from Carrie today is, like,
And I'm not against it. I just know this could get really sticky fast.
It's new to me as well.
They can be very
What
meticulous.
I would want to say for context is that this request is not to help the History Center redo their exhibits. That is work that the History Center is going to do on their own anyway. This advisory committee is a
totally, I don't know who any of these people are. Are you looking at totally, I mean, I know you're trying to enhance the Native American history, but we have the other history too that we've kind of seen in my, in a broad stroke, we're trying to replace or disregard. So is this a mixed variety of people in a community?
This is only specific to a Native Advisory Council because of the different type of history that's required to interpret Native American history. We are not uninterpreting any other history. We are just adding a history that hasn't been used previously.
I guess, but I would be a little, I would seek maybe balance on a committee because
We have other committees that are focused, we're redoing all of our exhibits and we are, all other exhibits are Winona settler histories, those people who have come since then. This is just one exhibit among many exhibits, but it just so happens we do not have the expertise to tell that history. And that's where we're looking to oral tradition, potentially archaeology, the kind of resources where you do learn Native American history. We have the resources and the access to the other types of history. So this is
And,
specific.
okay, so we're not talking about any funding or anything because we already fund the History Center.
And we appreciate that very
So,
much.
I mean,
Thank
you are getting money from all the taxpayers. So, okay, it's just and so your ultimate goal is for this is to put things out at our parks? Is
My
that what I'm
question to
understanding?
you, and this is, our goal is to have, number one, we're helping the city and our own interests in terms of interpretation exhibits. My thought was, being that you have parks that have maybe cultural resources already in terms of archaeological sites, and you may want interpretation, that the idea would be that you could develop relationships. The people who are listed there are people I already have relationships with, and work on some agreements and policies about how do you interpret your parks? And that is what I'm hopeful for the city as well, even though we're going to work on that interpretation with them. There could just be some kind of understanding of how you do consultation when you do want to do development. You want to build a pavilion, you need to dig some posts in the ground. What happens? What happens if you find something? Those kinds of
We have
things.
rules for that already. If it's through zoning and our land use, if it's a highly, and when somebody comes in for a permit, if it's a highly area that they have to do an archaeological survey. And we've required a number of those, Lou, right, on different sites. So, I mean, yeah, but yes, we want to protect those things. So, all right,
Thank you.
Yeah,
all right.
thank you.
But if you come back again, I guess I would like some type of
So just to be,
the advisory, some kind of, who are these people? I mean,
just to be clear, the request is to refer it to Parks and Environment.
Right.
And to approve use of some staff time to present it to the Parks and Environment Committee to review.
right, but I guess I've got Lou here sitting in charge of Parks and Environment. I guess, again, I don't know who we're trying to approve to do what at this point in time.
Many of them are tribal historic preservation officers that are put in place by the tribal government. Frankie Jackson, who is
So you've got mileage and such. Are they local?
they're as local as Prairie Island and as far away as the reservations to where Chief Waukesha was exiled. And I mean, the idea was that we were advised, if we're going to do proper oral history, that we get a representative sample of those oral histories. So some are from as far away as Nebraska.
You can't just write a.
But but I guess I thought you were trying to address the history here in Winona County.
So all of the
It's
native
broader than that.
Native people have been exiled from Winona County in history, and so access to that history is
Where they
elsewhere.
are.
Okay, all right. I guess I don't know my history. I apologize.
We're learning together. We're learning together.
Opportunity.
We had
Yeah, it
Minnesota-
has to all
back in
learn
sixth
something.
grade, we had Minnesota history, but we didn't, I don't know what that covered. It was
We're
pretty,
all learning this
pretty basic.
together. That's
Okay.
that's the beautiful part.
all right. So you'll work with the Parks and Recreation Committee.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. All right. I see nothing else on our agenda.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We have
Motion
to vote.
made, seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Adjourn.
Thank